Translations do justice to Tagore as a poet. The problem is not so great as far as prose works, particularly essays, are concerned. As regards his poetic works, even Tagore's own translations have been questioned on stylistic grounds. But translations by the original author are presumably more dependable so far as authorial intention is concerned. Since there are not many translations by Tagore himself, out of his vast corpus of writings, occasionally I have had to make do with renderings by others or myself. To my mind, that is acceptable so far as his prose works, particularly his essays, are concerned, but not his poetry. Moreover, to those without access to the original language of an author, the mere description of the beauty of his or her writings, which abound in some literary biographies, makes little sense. I have, therefore, tried to avoid such long descriptions and the customary superlatives. I am deeply conscious of the fact that only fragments of all his published writings and only an impression of the range and quality of Tagore's writings can be conveyed in a biography of this kind. Finally, I have also avoided elaborating upon the details of day-to-day life which appear to be irrelevant to his inner life. A set of chronological tables provides such details so that a reader may refer to them to locate various events of his life in the history of his times. Tagore's life and times. About 18 months before his death, Tagore, in a self-reflective comment on his creative life, wrote, "My literary writings have undergone changes just as seasons of nature change. Often that has occurred without my being conscious of it. Such changes in the trend of writing follows changes in the environs. It is so natural that it is not a conscious act. The writer remains unaware of it. It is the critic at a distance from him who can observe those trends." When one considers the versatile creativity of Tagore and the staggering range of his thoughts and writings over a period of over 60 years, those words seem to hold the key to any attempt to comprehend his works as a totality. Tagore's creative self renewed itself over and over again in his long creative life. No doubt, there were a few things which remained constant. This is apparent from a study of the changes that he and his works underwent. Of course, one looks at them in this day and age from a distance and through the optics of another age, from a point of view possibly different from his. But Tagore had the perspicacity to concede that it is the privilege of the external observer to perceive the trends, to point to changes and continuities. That perception, he maintained, is not a necessary part of the act of creation by the author observed. This dictum of his justifies a periodization of Tagore's intellectual life. This attempt is tentative, but nevertheless, it is founded on certain ideas which need to be mentioned. First, the historical location of Tagore is given a central explanatory role. It is often said of an author that he is in advance of his times. That is truer of Tagore than of many others. But notwithstanding that autonomy of the authorial mind, the extent to which it is shaped by the historical circumstances merits consideration. It may appear sufficient to certain critics to look at any literary creation solely in its own terms, but is that a sufficient condition for comprehending the entire reality? An approach that assumes a completely autonomous trajectory of an author's development is likely to miss out connections between the history of those times and the life of the mind which we aim to understand. Therefore, a good deal of space is given to contemporary history as well as the inheritance from the past in the following pages. In that respect, this book is unlike the standard literary biographies. Tagore himself reflected on his restless present and the historical past. "I have felt your muffled steps in my blood, ever moving past, have seen your hushed countenance in the heart of the garrulous day. You have come to right.